Welcome to the Online Great Books podcast, brought to you by OnlineGreatBooks.com, where we talk about the good life, the great books, great conversation, and great ideas. So we read a Hercule, I don't know how you say it,
Poirot.
He's a Belgian, so who knows how you say these things. Mystery by Agatha Christie, the Queen of Mystery, her Murder on the Orient Express. It was previously published as Murder in the Calais Coach.
So apparently she's the third most published author, best-selling novels of all time, 2 billion copies.
Lord. Okay, who are the other two? Frank Herbert.
Shakespeare.
And Shakespeare.
And the Bible are the most published books.
Oh, I thought you were saying novelists.
No, not novelists. Wrote a bunch of books. They've been real popular. So I thought we'd give her a look. I know my mom has read a bunch of them, as did my grandmother. Just have all these Agatha Christie books all over the house. And I'd only ever read a few of them. So I thought we see what the attraction is. And maybe you, dear listener, can see the attraction too and find some stuff you can read. So we did Murder on the Orient Express, which, is it the first Hercule Poirot story?
I don't think it is.
The Mysterious Affair at Styles, which I don't think I've read. I've read a few of him. And it's a locked door mystery, except it's a snowbound train mystery.
It's a great little, what do they call it? Device, conceit, whatever. They're on a train going from, oh my gosh, I don't even remember. See, I read this 3 weeks ago.
Istanbul.
Ultimately to France, I think.
Yeah.
They hit a snowbank and the train comes to a halt. And they're snowed in on all sides and have to wait till railroad workers come and clear the tracks. And while that has happened, somebody's dead. Somebody is deadified.
Mm-hmm.
We got to figure out who done it.
Well, and as a reader, you know, it's got to be one of these people. Where if somebody gets stabbed in the town square and drops dead, your suspect list is everybody in the world.
Yeah, this is a great device. I hate a detective story, a murder, an old-time radio show, or whatever, where at the end in the reveal, we find out that the detective had a piece of information that was never revealed in the story. I hate that stuff. And while that could happen in one of these locked room mysteries because the author was a charlatan, it's less likely to happen. Oh, did we read Murders in the Rue Morgue?
Yeah.
Poe did that to us a little bit in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's the first mystery, kind of whodunit, whatever. So we'll cut him some slack, but I don't cotton to that.
So what you can do, and it's pretty explicit in Murder on the Orient Express, you get to see everything that the detective sees. And you could take notes along with him and see if you can solve the crime. And I have to say, I didn't solve the crime.
No.
But I saw something was fishy. So there are a limited number of people on this this train. We have Mary Debenham, young English lady, Colonel Arbuthnot, I love the name, who appears to have an understanding with Mary. Hector McQueen, who is in the company of M. Ratchet, the murder victim. Isn't that a good name for...
It is.
Ratchet. You're not supposed to like him. Antonio Foscarelli, the stereotypical Italian. In the book, he's like an exaggerated Arthur Fonzarelli.
Yeah, a little bit.
Edward Masterman, who is a valet for the victim. Cyrus Hardman, who turns out to be a detective. Princess Dragomirov, an old Russian princess. Greta Olson, a nurse. We're almost at the end. Mrs. Hubbard, a loud American lady with money to dispose of, which has been in a million movies.
Mm-hmm.
like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. And
This kind of reminds me of an Ian Fleming Bond novel.
How so?
Because it's just all these continentals, just all these different people, and they've all got all their peculiar cultural differences, and they're all thrown in this thing. From Russia with Love, a lot of that, at least that movie, takes place on a train. There's a killer on the train. Bond's got to deal with that. Yeah, there's a lot of those Bond novels take place in resort towns, and you've got former Russians, not Soviets, like Miss Dragomirov. She's a Russian. She's not a Soviet. Like, she's before the Tsar was killed. She's an old lady. You've got Belgians, and everybody's there. The Italian, the American. Yeah, it's just got that early 20th century continental Europe vibe, which is fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a few more characters: Hildegard Schmidt, Count Andrenyi, and his wife, Countess Andrenyi. And that's it. It makes me nostalgic for train travel, which I never really did like this. Nowadays, when you travel, you're either in your car, your isolated car, or you're on an airplane in a tube, or you can't really talk to anybody anyway. I mean, that's it. So one imagines in the old days you would take a train maybe from New York to San Francisco.
Good Lord.
If you wanted to go to San Francisco.
That'd be a train ride.
Well, it's going to take you a few days, and you get a sleeper compartment, and you're going to have meals. And there might be a lounge.
Will you be taking your meal in the dining car or in your berth?
I think this morning I'll be in the dining car.
Excellent. Would you like me to turn down your bed while you do it?
Yeah, and you'd have servants on the train.
These people don't even turn the corner down on the sheet before they go to bed. Like, there's stewards clamor around and fold the sheet back so they can get in bed. Like, these all a bunch of helpless, mincing Europeans.
Well, wasn't that a line in the book somewhere that I think it was in this book?
Yeah, page 26. She says, "You just can't apply American methods in this country. It's just natural to folks here to be indolent. They haven't got any hustle in them." One of the American characters says that.
Because it's been 3 weeks since I finished this book, I'm not sure if this is a thought from the book or from somewhere else, but if you were rich, you were expected to have servants.
Yeah.
You'd be greedy if you didn't, because you've got the means to support other people. So why don't you? Why don't you have a valet? That guy needs a job.
I didn't see that in this book. That must have been something else you've read in the.
It might be somewhere else in my brain.
Yeah, so I thought you were going with these wealthy Europeans are indolent and won't even turn the bed down. But
yes, but if they have money,
share the wealth.
Yeah,
trickle down. The original trickle down.
Right.
Reading this had me super jumpy because I believe in Chekhov's gun. You know Chekhov's gun? He says if there's a mantle, a gun over the mantle in the first act, you have to use it before the end of the play.
Mm-hmm.
Every element in a story needs to propel the story forward. It needs to be necessary. Otherwise, you need to cut it out, he says, essentially. So everything in this thing, I'm like, listen to this. Of Mrs. Mary Debenham, maybe she's a miss, I can't remember, on or around page 26, it says, she had a mass of faded yellow hair unbecomingly arranged in a large bun, wore glasses, and had a long, mild, amiable face, rather like a sheep. Okay, so when I'm reading this, I'm like, oh gosh, she's got yellow hair, she's wearing glasses. Like, I'm just making note of all this stuff because I don't want Poirot to get ahead of me here.
Right. You don't want to miss a clue, and there's so many clues. There's so many clues in this book.
The woman opposite him was a mere girl, 20 at a guess, a tight-fitting little black coat and skirt, white satin blouse, small chic, black toque perched at the fashionable, outrageous angle. She had beautiful, foreign-looking face, dead white skin, large brown eyes, jet black hair. She was smoking a cigarette in a long holder. I'm like, cigarette, long holder. She wore one large emerald set in platinum. I'm like, okay, emerald set in platinum. I'm just making note of everything. It's just... It makes it hard to enjoy this. Maybe I shouldn't try to compete with Poirot. but I was trying to compete with him.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then Agatha Christie plays some dirty tricks on you.
Yeah.
Ratchet tries to hire Poirot. He's feared for his life, and wants to hire the famous detective to protect him, and he won't do it. So this is page 23 in my edition. I don't know which one you have. I regret, monsieur, that I cannot oblige you. Name your figure, then. You do not understand, monsieur. I've been very fortunate in my profession. I've made enough money to satisfy both my needs and my caprices. I take now only such cases as interest me. You've got a pretty good nerve. Will $20,000 tempt you? It will not. If you're holding out for more, you won't get it. I know what a thing's worth to me. I also, Mr. Ratchet. What's wrong with my proposition? If you forgive me for being personal, I do not like your face. And that's why he doesn't take the job. It's hard for me to think of Sherlock Holmes doing that.
Well, Sherlock would definitely walk away from money.
But would he make an emotional judgment based on the face of somebody?
Yes. Well, it wouldn't be emotional. He would see the drooping on the left eye and the torn earlobe and the white hair due to the scar over the brow, and he would draw some conclusions for that. But Poirot, while he is rational and he likes to sit down and think, he also intuits more.
Right. It's important for him to do the psychology. It says on, I think it's page 49. Which edition do you have? I have a wonderful edition from, I like old books. I like the way they look. This is from 1976, 43rd printing.
Right. Good Lord. It was once a year from the day she published it.
Now a major motion picture. It gives the cast of the movie on the back. Albert Finney, Lauren Bacall, Martin Balsam, Ingrid Bergman. And it's on that kind of yellow edged paper.
Oh, I've got
it's charming to me.
Kindle thing, so who knows?
Kindle.
I've got a paper one around here. I just couldn't find it.
So he says here in mine on page 49, talking to, I think, Dr. Constantine. See you, my dear Dr. Me, I am not one to rely on the expert procedure. It is the psychology I seek, not the fingerprint or the cigarette ash. And I thought that was a bit of a jibe at Holmes, who had made a study of cigarette ash.
One of several monographs.
Just in case, see?
Right.
Yes.
I think that she was deucing on Conan Doyle, I do.
It's all right. There's room enough in the world.
Could an English mystery writer in the 30s could she have not been a fan? It's not possible, is it?
Not possible.
I don't think so.
I think the clue of clues is probably on page 50. It's that note.
Oh, the burnt note, which is awfully convenient, isn't it? The burnt note. Is that the one you're talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They find the ashes of a note, and then Poirot is able to treat the ashes with some traveling chemistry kit he has with him all the time, and render it legible. I thought the spot of grease that had been dropped on the passport by some careless official was an important clue as well.
What the note tells you, and it's where this thing gets weird. So I should say, if you have not read this and you think you're going to read this book, we should pause now.
Yep.
Okay, now we can continue. So there will be spoilers. You have been warned. So the note says, just a fragment, remember little Daisy Armstrong. And then Poirot is able to figure out who the dead man was. It turns out he is not named Ratchet. He is a bad, bad man from America named Cassetti, who had been involved in a kidnapping that went wrong.
Isn't that interesting? You know, on March 1st, 1932, Charles Augustus Lindbergh Jr., the eldest son of aviator Charles Lindbergh and Anne Morrow Lindbergh, was abducted from the family home in Highfields, New Jersey. On May 12th, the body of the 20-month-old boy, killed by a massive skull fracture, was discovered nearby. In September 1934, Richard Hauptmann was arrested and, in a trial lasting from January 2nd to February 13th, 1935, was found guilty of the first-degree murder and sentenced to death. He was executed by electric chair in the New Jersey State Prison. Lindbergh was the biggest celebrity in the world, probably.
Mm-hmm.
The news was full of this. This was an outrageous event, and if it happens to anybody, but then the fact that it happens to the biggest hero on the planet at that time, it would be like if Neil Armstrong's kid got kidnapped right after his space flight or something like that. It's just outrageous. So every time I read about this abduction, in the Armstrong abduction, I read Lindbergh. That's what I saw every time in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just saw this detail on Hauptmann, the man who was executed. He refused a last-minute offer to commute his sentence from the death penalty to life without parole in exchange for a confession.
Right.
And he wouldn't do it.
Yeah, there are questions in my mind whether Hauptmann did it or not, so whatever.
So anyway, so Cassetti is like a Hauptmann or whoever did it who got away with it through connections and is traveling under assumed name, using the money from his career of crime to travel across Europe. And so for me, things get fishy because there's a few people on this train who have connections to Armstrong.
The old Russian countess or whatever has connections with them. Other wealthy continentals had connections with the wealthy Armstrong family, and those things start to come out. Of course, that gives all of them a motive. All of those people who we see those connections.
Well, and the weird thing about the murder is there are 12 wounds on the body.
Mm.
And
how many people are on the jury?
12. And not all of them appear to have bled.
Some of them are post-mortem. Some of them are quite powerful. Others are glancing and
one of them's left-handed.
One of them's a left-handed wound.
Which is weird. So the murderer is going to stab him with his right hand and then switch to the left hand.
Well, the murderer is a barbell enthusiast and has no conditioning whatsoever. So he made 11 stab wounds. He was winded, sat down, arrested for 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Switched hands and did one more blow.
Well, if it was a lifter, it would have been in groups of 5.
That's true.
Because any more than 5 is cardio. So there's some odd things about this. There's some red herrings. And so I was reading it too, and I was taking notes and trying to figure out all of these clues and make sure I didn't miss any. But, well, I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. Do people tell the truth? Who in the book tells the truth? See, you as the reader, you don't know who's telling the truth. You presume that Hercule Poirot is telling the truth. But other than that, I mean, you're getting everything that he sees and hears.
Yeah, again, a wonderful trope, I don't know, device, whatever. Locked train, and then he sets up shop in the dining car, Poirot, sets up shop in the dining car, and the guests come to him one at a time and are interviewed in front of 2 witnesses, a physician and the railroad dick. And we hear or read or witness the interviews right along with Poirot. And again, the whole time I'm like, she better not leave something out and then ambush me with that. I won't deal with that. And she doesn't. I didn't see any leaps in here. So you get to see it all. And if you wanted to, you could get a yellow pad, and Karl probably did because he's Karl, and make notes and diagrams and follow right along with Poirot. Of course, he doesn't need to make notes.
No, because he's a big brain guy.
Yeah, the little gray cells he talks about all the time are on his side.
Yeah. There's some fun little bits in here. The valet, it says of him, he has a low opinion of Americans and no opinion at all of any other nationality. That made me chuckle. The portrayal of Americans in this book is funny.
Yeah. They're loud, judgmental.
Drunks.
Yeah. So what's wrong? What are you saying?
It's just kind of funny to see what a British lady, a high-class British lady, thinks of us in 1930, whatever it was.
She's probably right. Like if an American got to England in the 1930s, that's probably what you were dealing with. They weren't getting a bunch of Amish.
No, it would have been New Yorkers, probably.
You know how they are.
Yes.
Yeah. Who is it? Is it the physician? The physician that's on the train keeps accusing the Italian because you know how hot-blooded they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crime of passion. It must be an Italian, you know. So a lot of that stuff in here, which I think is funny, but again, it's maybe one of those ideas that you're not allowed to utter such things nowadays. You're Italian shaming or whatever, American shaming.
Well, but it's an approach too. You look at the crime. 12 stab wounds is a lot of stab wounds.
Profiling.
After, especially when some of them are after the guy is dead. So what sort of person would do that crime?
A man of passion.
That's what the doctor is saying.
Yeah. It's profiling. It reads as quaint and silly at this point, but, you know, we've all seen the show Profiler. So it must be true. On the page just before the chapter marked 3, certain suggestive points. I'm just zinging right through this. Poirot says, "It has been a little joke between us, has it not? This business of sitting back and thinking out the truth. Well, I'm about to put my theory into practice here before your eyes. You too must do the same. Let us all three close our eyes and think." One or more of those passengers killed Ratchet. Which of them? So when he wrote that, or when Christie wrote that and I read it, I thought, what is the process whereby Poirot is thinking about this? You know, Holmes would say, oh, this is a 2-pipe problem or a 3-pipe problem, you know, and he would light his pipe. And but Holmes demonstrated his methods all the time, you know. Oh, here's this hat I found, Watson says, and he picks up the hat and he says, oh, well, this is a bachelor and his gas is out and he's fallen on hard times and, you know, whatever. And then he does that from making these observances about the guy's hat. And Doyle does us the courtesy of just exposing all of that and sharing all with us. The Poirot thing, at the end, here's another one of these conventions that I think is really probably Christie's perfection, at least. You have the big reveal where you gather everyone together in the parlor. In this case, it's the dining car. But we've seen this over and over again in movies and in novels. You bring everybody together. Some are innocent, some are guilty. And you, as the detective, the big exposition. You know, here's the evidence. And you, sir, are the murderer. And they jump up and grab a candlestick and try to bash you in the head and run out of the room. You know, whatever. So at that time, she shares, you know, Poirot's reasoning, but not how he got to the reasoning. And I wanted to know that. He says, let us all three close our eyes and think. I want to know how his mind works and how he got there.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a little bit of a disappointment for me that you don't get inside his head.
He's sort of a magical Belgian like that.
Yeah, he figures out they're all related to the Armstrong case. And he makes these leaps. Well, this is Linda Arden, and this is, your name is really Helena, not Elena. It was a bit of a stretch.
To be fair to Christie, he'll have one of these ideas that, oh, so-and-so must be the niece of whatever it is. And then he'll ask him to come back to the dining room, and he'll ask them a question that his decision, you know, who is this person, will swing on asking this question, in which they either maybe they trip up or something. But Poirot's no Holmes in this respect. He's a magic black box, He's all affect and aesthetic and style, which is kind of cool. He's got his mustaches and he's portly and he likes his food and drink and he's pompous and he's a lot of fun. But no Sherlock is he. Do you agree?
Yeah, I like the way that the other two go wrong. So you have the I can't pronounce French names. Bouc, B-O-U-C.
Yeah, who cares?
who thinks, Poirot obviously thinks that this English girl is mixed up in the matter. I cannot help feeling that is most unlikely. The English are extremely cold. Probably it's because they have no figures. He doesn't like English women. But that is not the point. It seems that the Italian could not have done it either. A pity. He's trying to think of a type that must have done it because of his ethnic type.
Right.
And then he gives up. Wonder when we'll get out of here because they're still stuck by the snowbank. Dr. Constantine, the Greek doctor. I guess he's Greek, isn't he?
We'll go with that. Is he Turkish?
Not with that name. And he starts thinking about the case. Odd about the wounds, I cannot understand it. Would it be easier to understand if he had been shot? After all, the term gunman must mean that they shoot with a gun. A curious country, America. I should like to go there. It is so progressive. When I get home, I must get hold of Demetrius Zagoni. He's been to America. He has all the modern ideas. I wonder what Zia is doing at this moment. If my wife ever finds out. And so he stops. He can't think about the case. He has to think about Zia, who's presumably a girlfriend, about whom he has pornographic thoughts.
Yeah, but isn't that what it's like when most of us sit down? You get the squirrel brain looking. You think about that. It's really hard to sit down and just rationate your way through something like this.
Mm-hmm. So Poirot is a model of a more correct way to think.
Well, he's an image of it, but we don't know. We don't know what he did. Because there's no elementary Watson moment where he explains it. He just gives us all the conclusion. Inferior.
Inferior to Holmes?
Yes. To Doyle.
Well, should we reveal?
Well, hang on. There are advances in the whodunit genre here because it has these devices in there, like the big reveal at the end. Holmes has some, but not like this, not where you draw everybody together. I would like to see you in the parlor at 6 p.m. That sort of ceremony around it. Holmes never had that. And then the locked room thing. And there were mysteries where the room had been locked, and it was curious as to how the murder could have occurred, but not where everybody's locked in a mansion together or locked in on this train together or whatever. So those things are now sort of cliches and well-worn, but they're big advances. Whoever came up with the 1-4-5 blues progression may not have been the best blues musician, but that progression sure is tasty, and thanks for that, whoever you are, unnamed person.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays to see a mystery, and a whole lot of hers were made into movies, and television shows. You expect to have that happen. In Murder, She Wrote, you expect to have that happen.
This stupid game Clue that we used to play all the time when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. Stupid game.
Nah, it's an okay game, but we used to play it all the time, and it's basically a Christie mystery made into a board game. Okay, you ready for the big reveal?
Sure.
Go ahead. Who done it?
There's not one murderer. There's all the murderers. They all did it.
It's brilliant.
So all of that work trying to figure out, where the kimono came from or the timing of this thing, it's a whole bunch of red herrings because they were all in on it. And there's clues to that. If you go back to the beginning, I mean, the train was curiously full. That's remarked upon.
Mm-hmm.
All these English-speaking people on a train from Istanbul is weird. If you read it the second time, you can see that it all holds together.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff going on here that me being born in 1974 in the United States is just not hip to. Like, I don't know how many people are on an express train from Istanbul to Calais. I don't understand how that stuff works, so I wasn't able to figure out some of those things, but which is fine. I mean, it would be natural for Christie and her readers to understand maybe where I don't. Here's one of the flourishes. Well, here is the flourish I love the most about this book, and I love this when Holmes does it too. The last chapter, chapter 9, Poirot propounds 2 solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. He says, I will speak in English since I think all of you know a little of that language. We are here to investigate the death of Samuel Edward Ratchet, alias Cassetti. There are 2 possible solutions of the crime. I shall put them both before you, and I shall ask Mr. Frenchy and Mr. Constantine here to judge which solution is the right one. Now, you all know the facts of the case. Mr. Ratchet was found stabbed this morning. He was last known to be alive at 12:37 last night when he spoke to the wagon-lit conductor through the door. A watch in his pajama pocket was found to be badly dented, and it had stopped at 1:15. Mr. Constantine, who examined the body when found, puts the time of death as having occurred between midnight and 2 in the morning. At half an hour past midnight, as you all know, the train ran into a snowdrift. After that time, it was impossible for anyone to leave the train. The evidence of Mr. Hardman, who is a member of the New York Detective Agency, several heads turned to look at Mr. Hardman, shows that no one could have passed his compartment without being seen by him. We are therefore forced to the conclusion that the murder is to be found among the occupants of one particular coach, the Stamboul-Calais coach. So he then goes on to say that the murderer stabbed the guy and split.
Yep. Yeah, so a murderer must have come on the train at Belgrade by a door left open by Arbuthnot and McQueen, who are out for a smoke, or were out talking. Must have stabbed him and then left, and it all fits. It could have happened. A mystery man could have done the job. Of course, you know, as a reader of a mystery novel, that it will never be a mystery man.
Yeah, but it is absurd, that explanation, cried whatever. And then he goes on to explain, oh no, the 12 of you were all closely related to the Armstrong family and or its staff, and were all very fond of the dead Armstrong child. You knew that Cassetti had gotten away scot-free, and you conspired, each and all of you, to ambush him, and each of you were to strike a blow so that you would share equally in the guilt and in the revenge, or doling out of the justice. Isn't that true? And then he asks the railroad detective and the doctor to judge which of the 2 theories is most likely. And they says, well, the murderer must have escaped, which is patently absurd, but justice is done. I love it. I love it when the detective, I mean, I've said this many times. I love it when the detective sees that something illegal was done, but that justice was served, and then conspires with them to keep it from the police.
Yeah, so we get to the end. For me, it's about second page from the end, where Hubbard, who is, what's her name? Lyndon something or other. Hubbard is not really Hubbard. She's an actress. Well, she said, you know everything now, Mr. Poirot. What are you going to do about it? If it must all come out, can't you lay the blame upon me and me only? I would have stabbed that man 12 times willingly. It wasn't only that he was responsible for my daughter's death and her child's and that of another child who might have been alive and happy now. It was more than that, There had been other children kidnapped before Daisy, and there might be others in the future. Society had condemned him. We were only carrying out the sentence. But it's unnecessary to bring all these others into it. All these good, faithful souls, and poor Michelle and Mary and Colonel Arbuthnot, they love each other. Her voice was wonderful, echoing through the crowded space, that deep, emotional, heart-stirring voice that had thrilled many a New York audience. And that's when Poirot looks at his friend and says, "You're a director of the company? What do you say?" And you can imagine this is kind of like a round up the usual suspects kind of moment.
Yeah.
And he clears his throat. Maybe if you do this in the movie and you act like, well, in my opinion, the first theory you put forward is the correct one. Decidedly so. I suggest that it is the solution we offer to the Yugoslavian police when they arrive. You agree? The doctor agrees as well. So that's it.
Perfect.
The murderers get away with it.
No, the executioners.
Yeah, so you have the satisfaction of the puzzle box, but maybe you didn't solve it. You also have the satisfaction of justice being served.
Yeah, it happens time and again in the Holmes books and in these. I love it.
So it's a pleasure. And if you find that you do like Agatha Christie novels, that's good news for you.
There are plenty.
Yeah, there's a whole lot. She lived 85 years and I think wrote the whole time. Big collections. There's Miss Marple. It's one of her characters. Poirot. Who else?
Was it Tommy and Tuppence?
I remember reading one of hers where it was a murder in a theater, and there was no way. The guy was stabbed I think the guy was stabbed in the back, and you're trying to figure out how. And it was an ice pick.
An ice sickle.
Was it an icicle? One of them was an ice pick through the back of the theater chair.
Ah, I see. Maybe that was just me projecting.
Planning out your murders.
Yeah, like the murder weapon just disappears. An icicle. Huh? I think.
Yeah, no weapon, no crime, right?
Yeah, you can use that one if you want. You can have that.
So anyway, there's a whole lot that you can do there. And the thing about Hercule Poirot, it is he's not too much of a character.
He's not. He's a black box.
Holmes is a lot more of a character. So when you get into a book series, I like to be a completist. I don't want to jump in the middle. I want to know who these people are. So if I'm reading Terry Pratchett's Discworld stuff, I want to read all of them, and I have to go back to the beginning and read it. Well, no, you can jump anywhere on one of these mysteries.
Yeah, Holmes has passions and picadillos and a backstory and a brother and, whatever. But, and he shares his methods. Having his chronicler with him all the time and is a big deal. And, in making sure that the methods are explained and make the story more transparent. And, Christie doesn't have that for Poirot. A lot of fun, but it's not as good. Am I wrong, Karl? Come on.
I don't know. It's Holmes sometimes is you say Poirot is magical. Holmes is magical. As I saw from the 1 millimeter difference in height of the heel on the left side, I knew that he had been a mule skinner who rode on the right side of...
Are you autistic? Are you autism shaming? Like, he's just really sensitive.
Well, it's not things that the reader could necessarily figure out. It's when there's a reveal in the Holmes books, you say, well, that's very clever, but there was no way you were going to do it. I think the reason that Hercule is a 0 is because he's you. He's the reader.
How dare you?
So that you're able to...
Call me a 0.
No, you know what I mean.
Right.
It's an empty space in the novel for you, the reader, to go and twirl your mustache and figure out who did it.
Yeah, but still, that's what people always say when they lose the argument.
But still?
Yeah, but still. Holmes is the best.
Yeah, I like my detectives to have personality. My favorite is probably Lord Peter Wimsey.
Never read any. I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah, they're good. Maybe we'll do it on the show, put it in the infinity pile.
Yeah, we should do that.
But you have to, then you have to start with the first one and learn who this person is, because there is character development and there's a love story behind all of the crimes. They're fun. My other daughter, Sarah, loves, we talked about one daughter who liked Pink Floyd because we did that in the earlier show. My daughter, Sarah, loves the Lord Peter Wimsey stuff.
Mm.
But his love interest actually almost takes over in that he saves Harriet Vane from from being executed. And it takes him another 3 novels or so to convince her. He proposes to her every day. But it takes him a while to convince her.
Blue pill Peter Wimsey.
No.
He lost frame, bro. Like, she was just S-testing him every day. He was just like, he lost frame.
Well, we can talk about that more when we do that. But those are marvelous.
Are you good with reading some perhaps spurious Plato, Greater and Lesser Hippias?
Sure.
Have you read the Hippia?
I think so. I have notes on them.
Greater Hippias, if I'm not mistaken. I may get this. I may have these inverted, reversed here in my mind. Greater Hippias is about what is noble or fair or good. Yeah.
That'd be good
on
to
your
know.
very shirt, the back of your shirt says the noble things are difficult. That's one translation of the last line in that one, if I'm not mistaken.
But are difficult things noble?
Not necessarily.
Just because it's difficult doesn't make it noble.
Is that transitive? It's not transitive. Is that what that means? And then Lesser Hippias is about one of the big problems of my life. Is it better to deal with somebody who says something that isn't true, but knows it isn't true? Or is it better to deal with one who says something that isn't true, but believes it to be true?
My hunch is the second.
It's better to deal with the person who believes it to be true?
Yeah.
I don't know. Today, I think it's better to deal with the person who knows is lying, because both of you know.
Yes, but what's his character if he's lying?
Well, his character he may be of poor virtue, but he at least maps onto reality. He carries no delusions. Even though he may be of poor virtue, it doesn't necessarily mean he's not accessible.
What if somebody believes something that is false?
Okay.
And attempts to lie about it and tells the truth?
Oh my gosh.
Is it still a lie?
That is not in this dialogue. We're going to have to read Eric Hoffer's book on the True Believer. This is a little bit of the problem of the True Believer. So you have someone who believes a falsehood to be true, and there's all degrees of believing in a falsehood, right? There's somebody that believes in a falsehood because they're misinformed or uninformed. They got the wrong information, or some information was not accessible to them. And sometimes you can just say, oh, but here's the piece you're missing. And they say, I'm sorry, you're correct, onward. But oftentimes those people are the true believer. They're the delusional. They hold that falsehood to be true in the face of all the evidence. And that person is scary as hell to me. I would rather the guy was lying and knew it than deal with the true believer.
Well, the way you framed it, you didn't frame it as true believer in the Lesser Hippias.
But no, he doesn't frame it as that either. But that's Hambrick's problem with that, is I do run into the true believer, like the modern monetary theorists,
Krugman
and others.
There's nothing which could convince him he's wrong.
No, I don't know what it would be. Reality won't do it.
Yeah.
Reality won't do it. So what do you do with that person? Now we're to like hammers and guns and knives. I mean,
yes, which is why, to join us, we would like you to have a belief that there is such a thing as truth and that human reason can get to it. Yeah. Which probably means also, as a corollary, that you might be wrong. Yeah. And that your judgments are subject to revision. And for the true believer, that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
So there is a truth. Human reason can get to it. You might be wrong. So listen to the people in your seminar.
Yeah, so we'll cover that. What is that which is fair, and what makes it fair? Or beautiful or noble. And the other problem, which is the problem of belief. Woo! Woo! Not the best of Plato. I don't think Greater Hippias is a Platonic. I don't think it is. I think it's fanfic or spurious or something. I suspect that the Lesser Hippias is, but you be the judge. You be the judge.
Mm-hmm.
What else, Karl?
Did we plug our other show?
We didn't plug it enough.
Go listen to our other show. We just put into the can. Well, not yet, because I need to upload it to get it off my computer and into the can. A show on the marvelous Pink Floyd album, Dark Side of the Moon. Pretty good. I think it's a pretty good show. We only spent about 8 hours talking about it. It's not that long. It's 2 hours or so. I come to these things and I learn more about music that I already love. And sometimes I learn to like or even love music that I didn't like before. And what could be better than that? Everybody likes music. You like food, you like reading. If you're listening to us, you like books, you want to read better books. So do we. Well, if you listen to music, don't you want to listen to better music?
Yeah. Or if you're listening to Bob Dylan, know why you should do on it. Like, knowing what is fair and what is noble and what is not is all part of it.
I think that Venn diagram, and where's the dot that's Bob Dylan?
Of music and the circle of good music and Bob Dylan?
The circle of noble things, of fine things.
I don't know. Tangled Up in Blue is a good song. There you go.
Concession.
Yeah, it's a good song. All right, well, there's that. Go to onlinegreatbooks.com/podcast and sign up for a mailing list. I ask you every time, but just do it. Would you? Yeah, and go listen to Music and Ideas. Please do that. Share each of these shows if you would. Sorry, we didn't have a deeper analysis of Murder on the Orient Express. Part of that's because we read it too long ago. But the other part of that is there's not as much there as there has been in some of these.
Yeah, it's a fun little book.
It's a jaunt, isn't it? It's a fun little jaunt.
It's a diversion.
And it's a great one for what it is. But I don't think there's as much there as there could be. But thank you guys so much for listening. We'll talk about Plato's Greater and Lesser Hippias, Hippias, on the next show. We'll talk to you soon.